Some books do not try to impress you with big theories. They do not promise to unlock secret power, transform your identity overnight, or hand you a grand philosophy of life. Instead, they do something quieter and, in many ways, more useful. They remind you of truths you already know but keep forgetting in the middle of ordinary stress. Truths about patience. About perspective. About calm. About how easily the mind turns small problems into heavy burdens. Most people do not lose peace because of one giant tragedy every day. They lose it in smaller ways. In traffic. In delays. In irritation. In misunderstandings. In unmet expectations. In minor arguments. In the need to be right. In tiny frustrations repeated so often that they slowly become a lifestyle. And after a while, many people get so used to this inner tension that they forget what a peaceful mind even feels like. Today's story is about that tension. The unnecessary pressure. The habit of turning life into a constant mental emergency. It is about learning to step back, breathe, and recognize that many of the things stealing your peace do not deserve that much power. Hey everyone, welcome back to Inspired Pages. On this channel, we explore books that help us understand life, the mind, human behavior, and the deeper patterns shaping the way we live. In our previous videos, we've talked about power, self-healing, awareness, ego, and inner freedom. Today, we are focusing on something that sounds simple, but may be one of the most important skills for a peaceful life: learning not to overreact to the small stuff. Today's book is Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's All Small Stuff by Richard Carlson. This book became popular because it speaks directly to a modern problem: stress has become normal. People are busy, distracted, emotionally overloaded, and constantly tense over things that, in the larger picture, matter very little. Carlson's message is not that life has no serious problems. His message is that a huge amount of our suffering comes from how we respond to ordinary events. And if we can change our inner response, we can reclaim a surprising amount of peace. At the heart of the book is one central idea: life becomes lighter when you stop treating every irritation like a crisis. That sounds obvious. But in practice, it is not easy. Because the human mind is dramatic. It magnifies. It personalizes. It insists. It reacts. A small inconvenience becomes a bad day. A disagreement becomes emotional distance. A delay becomes anger. A mistake becomes a story about failure. Something minor happens outside, and suddenly the inside becomes restless. Richard Carlson invites us to break this pattern. He shows that many people live as if they are always bracing for impact. They carry unnecessary urgency into everything. They rush through the day. They overdefend their opinions. They obsess over details that will soon be forgotten. They become irritated by people, by schedules, by noise, by imperfection, by anything that does not go according to plan. The result is a life filled with agitation. And the tragic part is that much of this agitation is optional. Not because circumstances are always easy, but because the mind adds extra tension to what is already happening. Carlson's work is really about learning how not to do that. How not to pile mental stress on top of ordinary life. One of the strongest messages in the book is about perspective. When something frustrating happens, Carlson encourages us to pause and ask, will this matter in a week? In a month? In a year? Very often, the answer is no. Yet in the moment, we give it enormous emotional importance. We treat temporary inconveniences like permanent disasters. This habit is exhausting. A delayed phone call. A rude comment. A messy room. A missed turn on the road. A small misunderstanding. A slow internet connection. A plan changing unexpectedly. A person not doing things exactly the way we wanted. None of these things are necessarily pleasant. But Carlson reminds us that unpleasant is not the same as catastrophic. We suffer more when we insist that every small discomfort must be fixed immediately, emotionally processed fully, or turned into proof that life is going wrong. Sometimes it is not life that is heavy. It is our interpretation that makes it heavy. This is one of the most useful shifts in the book. Carlson does not tell you to deny frustration. He tells you not to worship it. Notice it, yes. But do not let every annoyance dominate your state of mind. Another powerful idea in the book is the importance of letting go of the need to be right. This is a deeply human habit. People often argue not because truth is at stake, but because ego is involved. They want to win. They want the last word. They want to prove that their view is correct, their memory is accurate, their judgment is superior, or their way is better. In everyday life, this creates an enormous amount of unnecessary conflict. Carlson asks a beautiful question through this teaching: would you rather be right, or would you rather be peaceful? That question cuts deep because many people unconsciously choose being right again and again. They defend small points in relationships. They turn discussions into competitions. They correct others unnecessarily. They hold on to irritation because admitting softness feels like losing. But peace often requires release. Not every disagreement deserves your full energy. Not every correction needs to be made. Not every misunderstanding needs to become a battle. Sometimes wisdom is simply knowing when something is too small to fight over. This idea becomes especially important in close relationships. Many people damage connection over tiny things. Tone of voice. Small habits. Who said what first? Who forgot what? Who was technically right? And over time, the relationship becomes less about love and more about scorekeeping. Carlson encourages the opposite. Be kinder than necessary. Let small things go. Choose connection over ego whenever possible. That does not mean tolerating disrespect or avoiding important truth. It means recognizing when the issue is too small to deserve emotional warfare. Another major theme in the book is slowing down. Modern life pushes people toward speed. Faster work. Faster communication. Faster decisions. Faster reactions. Many people move through the day with a subtle sense of hurry even when there is no real emergency. This constant rushing creates anxiety. It makes people less patient, less present, less thoughtful, and more reactive. Carlson points out that inner peace and chronic rushing do not live well together. When you are always hurrying, you miss life. You stop listening fully. You stop breathing deeply. You stop noticing beauty. You become easier to irritate. You treat every task like a burden to complete instead of an experience to move through with awareness. Slowing down does not mean becoming lazy or irresponsible. It means bringing a calmer energy to what you are already doing. Eating without rushing. Listening without interrupting. Walking without mentally running 3 hours ahead. Answering problems without immediately escalating them internally. This kind of slowing down is not just about time management. It is about emotional management. Because a hurried mind is often an unhappy mind. Carlson also talks about the value of accepting imperfection. A lot of stress comes from unrealistic standards. People want life to be smooth, people to be reasonable, circumstances to be convenient, and themselves to perform flawlessly. But life is not built that way. Things go wrong. People forget things. Plans change. Weather shifts. Technology fails. Misunderstandings happen. Bodies get tired. Minds get overwhelmed. If you expect perfection from life, you will live in daily disappointment. One of the quiet wisdoms in this book is the recognition that peace often begins when you stop demanding that reality behave exactly the way you prefer. Acceptance is not passivity. It is not defeat. It is simply the refusal to turn normal imperfection into ongoing emotional resistance. This matters because resistance multiplies suffering. The event happens once. The mind reacts to it for hours. Sometimes for days. Carlson reminds us that much of mental exhaustion comes from replaying, resisting, and dramatizing things that have already happened. If a mistake is made, learn from it. If something annoying occurs, handle it. But then let it move. Do not keep feeding it mentally. The book also places great importance on kindness. Kindness may sound soft, but in this book it is deeply practical. A kind response often saves energy that anger would waste. A kind tone prevents conflict from growing. A kind interpretation of someone's behavior reduces unnecessary hurt. Carlson repeatedly shows that peace is not only built through logic or discipline. It is also built through warmth. For example, imagine someone around you is irritable, distracted, or impatient. One response is to mirror it and create a cycle of tension. Another is to respond with steadiness and kindness. Not weakness. Not submission. Just calm strength. Often, that shifts the whole interaction. Kindness is powerful because it interrupts escalation. This is especially relevant in family life, where people often give strangers more patience than they give the people they live with. Small irritations become habitual. Reactions become automatic. Carlson's message is a useful correction: the people closest to you deserve the best of your heart, not just the leftovers after your frustration. Another key lesson in the book is learning to live in the present moment. This idea appears in many spiritual and psychological books, but Carlson gives it a very everyday form. He reminds us that stress often comes from mentally living somewhere else. You are eating but thinking about tomorrow's problem. You are resting but replaying yesterday's conversation. You are with someone but mentally somewhere else entirely. The mind rarely stays where the body is. This split creates tension. Presence, by contrast, creates relief. When you are fully in the moment, many worries lose their force. You are not carrying the whole future at once. You are simply meeting the current moment. And usually, the current moment is more manageable than the story the mind is telling about everything else. That is one of the quiet miracles of presence. It reduces mental exaggeration. Carlson does not ask readers to become monks or withdraw from ordinary life. He simply asks them to pay attention to how much stress comes from unnecessary mental movement. The more you come back to what is here now, the calmer you become. The book also talks about choosing your battles wisely. This is an underrated life skill. Not everything deserves confrontation. Not every issue deserves analysis. Not every flawed behavior needs to be corrected on the spot. Some things are worth addressing directly. Others are better released. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference. This principle protects your energy. Energy is precious, but many people spend it recklessly. They give their peace away to every irritation, every opinion, every little disruption. Carlson encourages a more selective life. Ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Is this worth carrying mentally? Is this worth turning into a bigger issue? Very often, the honest answer is no. And that no is not avoidance. It is emotional intelligence. Another idea woven through the book is humility. A lot of stress comes from self-importance. The feeling that everything must go according to your expectations. That every inconvenience is an insult. That every disagreement is significant. That every delay is unacceptable. This mindset makes life feel offensive. Carlson softens this through humility. He reminds us that we are part of a larger flow of life. Not everything is personal. Not everything is about us. Not everything requires our control. This perspective can feel deeply freeing. Because the moment you stop needing life to constantly confirm your preferences, life becomes easier to move through. You become more flexible, more forgiving, less rigid, less dramatic, more at ease. One of the reasons this book has lasted is that it offers wisdom that can be practiced immediately. These are not distant philosophical ideas. They are daily decisions. Pause before reacting. Let small things go. Be gentler. Slow down. Stop trying to win every minor argument. Accept imperfection. Live in the moment. Protect your peace. Each of these seems small on its own. But together, they change the atmosphere of a life. A person who practices these ideas becomes easier to be around. More grounded. Less reactive. More thoughtful. More peaceful. And perhaps just as importantly, they become easier to live with inside their own mind. That may be the real gift of the book. Because so many people are tired not only of life, but of the way they experience life. Tired of constant irritation. Tired of overthinking. Tired of being emotionally hijacked by things that should have remained small. Tired of turning ordinary days into exhausting ones. Carlson offers another possibility. A calmer life is possible, not because problems disappear, but because your response becomes wiser. This does not mean becoming passive or careless. It does not mean you stop having standards, ambitions, or concerns. It means you stop paying for every small frustration with your nervous system. You stop making tension your normal state. You stop allowing tiny things to steal enormous energy. That is a form of wisdom. Toward the heart of the book is a truth many people need to hear: you can have a meaningful life without living in constant urgency. You can care deeply without becoming emotionally frantic. You can be responsible without being tense all the time. You can face real problems while still protecting your inner peace. That balance matters. Because some people confuse stress with seriousness. They think if they stay tense, they are being responsible. If they worry constantly, they are being careful. If they react strongly, they are being engaged. But Carlson gently reveals that much of this is illusion. A calm person is not less capable. Often, they are more effective. They think more clearly. Speak more wisely. See more accurately. Act with less waste. Calm is not weakness. It is clarity under pressure. It is perspective without panic. It is strength without noise. And that is one of the deepest lessons in the book. Another reason this message matters today is because modern life rewards overstimulation. News, notifications, messages, deadlines, comparison, opinions, everything competes for emotional attention. In such an environment, the ability to not sweat the small stuff becomes almost a survival skill. It protects your focus. It protects your relationships. It protects your health. It protects the quality of your days. Because in the end, life is made of days. And if most of your days are consumed by little frustrations that did not need so much emotional power, then peace remains always close but rarely chosen. Richard Carlson's book is really an invitation to choose differently. To choose softness over strain. Perspective over panic. Patience over irritation. Presence over mental chaos. Kindness over control. Peace over pettiness. That is not a small change. That is a different way of living. Toward the end, the title itself begins to reveal its wisdom more fully. Don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. Of course, not literally everything is small. Life contains genuine hardship. Grief is real. Illness is real. Loss is real. Serious injustice is real. The book is not denying that. What it is saying is that much of what we treat as emotionally enormous in daily life is actually much smaller than our reaction makes it. And remembering that can save us from 1,000 unnecessary storms. In the end, this book teaches that peace is not found only in big life changes. Sometimes it is built through small daily decisions. The decision not to react instantly. The decision not to argue over something trivial. The decision to breathe. The decision to slow down. The decision to let go. The decision to remember what truly matters. Those choices may seem ordinary, but repeated over time, they create an extraordinary life. If this message resonated with you, if it made you reflect on the small things that have been stealing too much of your peace, then subscribe to Inspired Pages. On this channel, we explore books that help us think clearly, live wisely, and grow into calmer, stronger, more aware versions of ourselves. Share this video with someone who feels overwhelmed, someone who overthinks everything, or someone who needs a reminder to breathe and let the little things go. Because sometimes the quality of life does not change when everything around us changes. Sometimes it changes when we stop giving small things the power to control our inner world. This is Inspired Pages. Stay calm, stay grounded, and keep growing.